Earning his wings during the Second World War, Kenneth Lett eventually retired from the Royal Canadian Air Force as a Major General and a Chief of Staff at NORAD headquarters. Out of uniform, he started the successful Executive Flight Center and Executive Flight Center Fuel Services, demonstrating a lifelong commitment to aviation in Canada. Born in Huntley Township, Ontario in 1923, Kenneth Charles Lett was inspired to fly by Billy Bishop and joined the RCAF in 1941. Prime Minister Mackenzie King presented Ken his wings on Parliament Hill, and he sailed for overseas service in October of 1943, where he joined 402 City of Winnipeg Fighter Squadron. Flying Spitfires, he spent 1943 and the first half of 1944 flying escort and ramrod missions. On D-Day, Ken flew top cover during the assault at Normandy, work that he came to consider a highlight of his wartime career, service that included some 143 missions flown in Europe. In recognition for assisting the Allies secure the D-Day beachhead, Ken received the French Legion of Honor in 2014. Upon rejoining the Air Force in 1947, Ken was posted to Saint-Hubert flying Vampires with 410 Squadron. His commander, Don Lobman, was leader of the Air Force's first post-war aerobatic team, the Blue Devils. With 413 Squadron based at Bagotville, Ken helped organize and conduct Operation Apple Tree, which introduced Canadians to the F-86 Sabre. Taking over as acting commander in the spring of 1952, Ken and his men developed an aerial display for that year's Canadian National Exhibition. They performed a 12-aircraft show for 19 consecutive days. He remembers it being low, fast, and noisy. With 413 Squadron posted to Europe as part of 3-Wing No. 1 Air Division, Ken was again heading overseas, where he was promoted and transferred to 416 Fighter Squadron, still flying Sabres. He returned to Canada in 1956 to become Chief's Flying Instructor at Gimli, Manitoba, where he led a formation display of 4 T-33s, the Gimli Smokers. Ken attended the RCAF Staff College in 1960 and, following promotion to Wing Commander, headed to Cold Lake, Alberta, and No. 6 Strike Reconnaissance Operational Training Unit. Introducing the Air Force's new CF-104 Starfighter, Ken flew the jet's first post-testing flight, before returning to Europe in 1963 as Chief Operations Officer at 3-Wing Headquarters. He joined Air Defense Command Headquarters in Canada the following year and continued climbing in rank. In 1966, he was promoted to Group Captain and made Base Commander at Comox, where he qualified on the CF-101, Albatross, and Argus aircraft. 3 years later, Ken attended the National Defense College before heading to the 24th NORAD Air Division in Great Falls, Montana in 1970. Promotion to Brigadier General came in 1972, and Ken was transferred to Training Command Headquarters as Chief of Staff for flight training. He was back in Europe 2 years later as Chief of Staff Operations with 4 Allied Tactical Air Force. His final promotion to Major General accompanied his posting to NORAD as Deputy Chief of Staff Operations. Retiring in 1978, Ken moved to Calgary and entered business aviation, eventually founding Executive Flight Center and Executive Flight Center Fuel Services. Beginning with just 4 employees, the latter proved hugely successful, growing to a staff of over 700. Ken, still active in the company, is now chairman. Ken has sat variously on the boards of the Air Force Association of Alberta, the Aerospace Museum of Calgary, and the Alberta Aviation Council, and has served both the Calgary Airport Business Association and the Calgary Transport Authority, and his support for the aviation community is significant. A founding member of the Air Force Museum Society, he contributed extensively to the Air Force Museum at Calgary's military museums. His 2015 donation, which enabled the purchase and display of critical aircraft, helped establish the Roma Lett Cold War exhibit that tells the story of the RCAF's Cold War history. In 2021, Ken donated to Mount Royal's aviation program to fund bursaries and scholarships for underrepresented students. Another of the many examples of his generosity and lifelong commitment to aviation in Canada. For his contributions to Canadian military aviation in a career spanning both the Second World War and Canada's contributions during the Cold War, and for his leadership in business aviation and his wider support for the aviation community, Kenneth Lett was inducted into Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held in 2023.